The story begins in a traditional Japanese house surrounded by pristine waters and lush greenery. Inside the house, a young boy called Minato follows his grandfather while holding a pot in his hands. After they enter a certain room, the boy's grandfather helps him place the pot on top of a high shelf. Then, the old man gives Minato some snacks to put on the shelf as well. As the little boy places the packets on the shelf, a little girl in a nearby room turns around as if she sensed their smell. Soon, she rushes into the room, catching Minato's attention. While he's distracted, the girl sneakily nabs the snacks off the shelf before running away from him. Minato quickly turns around and catches her in the act, but the little girl flashes an adorable smile at him before disappearing into thin air. Thinking she was a ghost, Minato gets terrified, but his grandfather reassures him that the girl he saw is very real. Minato's grandpa explains that he can see things that most people normally can't, so he was able to see the young girl, who is a peaceful spirit that has lived in their house for a long time. Several years later, after Minato has grown up, he moves from his granddad's house to an abandoned house once owned by his distant relative. As Minato walks towards his new house, a young man called Haruma feels surprised to see someone new move into their neighborhood. Meanwhile, Minato reaches his new house, shocked by its incredible size. A dark aura wafts out of the house's depths, which makes him feel unsettled. However, Minato shakes off the feeling and tries to open the gate with his key. As soon as the key makes contact with the lock, a mysterious power appears and drives off the dark mist. Surprised, Minato checks the note and key in his hand and sees that the notes he wrote have somehow disappeared from the paper. Then, a strong wind picks up out of nowhere and blows the note away from his hands. After flying through the air, the note lands on top of a secluded shrine, before the rest of the writing fades completely from its surface. Deep inside the shrine, a pair of intimidating eyes opens itself to the world. Back in the house, Minato sets down all his luggage and makes notes of all the cleanup chores he needs to do. While speaking to his mother on the phone, he wonders why nobody bought the big house despite its location and size. His mom explains that several interested buyers have visited the house, but after getting there, they all left without an explanation. Minato nods but forgets about this confusing detail as he completes cleaning up the entire place. Then, he starts walking towards the garden, but he notices some flowers lying on the floor. Minato gets confused since he doesn't recall bringing any flowers, but he notices a strange creature spying on him from the garden's bushes. Sometime later, the gardener arrives, and after a few hours, he finishes cleaning up the entire garden, so he begins discussing where to plant some new trees in Minato's garden. Minato thinks he shouldn't plant anything new since he's only temporarily staying in someone else's house, so the gardener agrees. Suddenly, a dark aura gathers around the gardener's shoulder, causing him incredible pain. As Minato notices the man's discomfort, a wind blows through the house, which causes one of his notes to fly into the gardener's shoulder. As soon as the note makes contact with the man, he stops feeling the pain. While the man celebrates his sudden recovery, Minato realizes that his note has once again lost all its writing. Then, he sees a bunch of herbs lying on the floor nearby and wonders if the gardener brought them over. The gardener reveals that he didn't bring any extra plants with him, leaving Minato extremely confused. The next day, Minato wakes up and heads outside to get some fresh air from the garden, but then he sees a clump of raspberries presented to him right outside the door. This time, he spots a strange creature leaving the area, which reminds him of the little girl from his grandfather's house. Minato finally realizes that a special creature has been bringing him these gifts just like that girl, so he decides to head to the market to buy some offerings. Once he returns, he takes out some sweets and drinks to present them as a sign of thanks. After Minato takes out all the gifts, a mysterious fox arrives at his garden, tracking down the delicious scents. Then, the fox reveals its true form to Minato and apologizes for intruding on his property. Shocked, Minato wonders why the white dog is talking to him. The fox explains he's not a dog. His name is Yamagami, and he is the god of the local mountain. Yamagami wonders why Minato is so calm after seeing him. Minato explains that he's simply feeling bad for him, since he was kind enough to bring so many gifts for him. Then, he offers up the sweets and drinks to Yamagami, who digs in without hesitation. While Yamagami enjoys the sweets, Minato offers him some alcohol as well. However, Yamagami asks him for normal water since his powers are too weakened to withstand the alcohol. Minato agrees and gives him some store-bought water, which Yamagami enjoys as much as his natural spring water. Then, Yamagami thanks Minato for saving him, revealing that his powers dispelled some evil spirits that were draining away his power. Minato feels confused since he doesn't recall fighting any spirits, but Yamagami explains that the writing on his notes contains a special power that can dispel evil spirits. Finally, Minato realizes why his writing always disappeared after all those supernatural events. Suddenly, the gardener returns to his house to get some tools he forgot in the garden. Minato feels embarrassed by the strange Yamagami sitting around, but Yamagami explains that normal people cannot see spirits like him. As expected, the gardener leaves without noticing anything strange, so Minato returns to pouring more water for the fox. This time, he gives Yamagami a bottle of sparkling water, which gives him a big surprise. Still, Yamagami ends up enjoying the fizzy bubbles in his mouth. While he continues to drink, Minato wonders why his words hold the power to drive evil spirits away. Even Yamagami doesn't know the exact cause, so he asks Minato if people have always complimented his calligraphy skills. Minato nods, explaining that his family used to run an inn. Back then, a customer noticed Minato's calligraphy on the inn's nameplate and told him never to take it down, even suggesting that he make one for his own house. After that, the customer paid the young boy to create a similar piece just for him. Ever since then, Minato has started making nameplates as a hobby. He proudly shows a couple of his pieces to Yamagami, who tells him to hang them up around the house. Once Minato hangs up all of the nameplates around the mansion, they light up and create a square barrier around the area. Minato is shocked that his writing could hold so much power, but Yamagami tells him that he can become even stronger if he trains it. A few days later, Yamagami returns to Minato's house to gorge himself on some more sweets. After eating them, he shows off his recovered power to Minato. Unfortunately, Yamagami's brilliance is too much for him to bear, so he tones it down. Meanwhile, in an abandoned facility, two evil spirits lunge towards Haruma, who rapidly chants some strange words right as the spirits are about to reach him. Haruma finishes his chant, creating a blue barrier that blocks them out. Instead of attacking again, the spirits give up on Haruma and escape outside the building. Despite the dangers of fighting such evil spirits, Haruma runs out since there's a chance the spirits could attack an innocent person in the nearby market. As he chases after the spirits, Haruma notices Minato walking right around the corner of an alley. Haruma has no time to warn him, so the spirit crashes head-on into Minato. To his shock, the spirit is the one that gets completely pulverized. After that, an orb drops to the ground. No one notices the ball, and instead, Minato feels upset that his shopping list has disappeared once again. Minato starts complaining about his list to Haruma, who wonders if he wanted to buy trash bags or something. Thankfully, Minato was indeed looking for trash bags, so his trip to the market is saved. He thanks Haruma and rushes off to buy the trash bags, while the strange orb silently slips away into the streets. Meanwhile, back at Minato's mansion, Yamagami takes a look around the deserted garden, and he uses his powers to restore it. Afterward, Minato goes out to check out the garden, where he finds its waters restored and the greenery completely fresh. Minato thanks Yamagami for his help, but then he realizes that the poor fox shrank down after using so much power. A few days later, Minato returns home, expecting to see Yamagami in his garden. However, he's shocked as Yamagami appears in an even tinier form than before, along with 3 other animals accompanying him. The small Yamagami explains that these martins are his 3 familiars called Seri, Utsugi, and Torika. Minato offers some sweets to the minions, who start gulping them down. Watching them devour the sweets, Minato tells the small animals to have as much as they want. After some time, they finish eating the sweets, and Yamagami returns to his normal size from the fulfilling meal he just had. Then, he notices Haruma standing outside the mansion, so he tells Minato to get the door. Outside, Haruma trembles as he feels an incredible presence within Minato's house. When the door opens, he immediately asks Minato if he can come inside for a chat. Inside, Haruma explains that he's a professional exorcist belonging to a government agency. Then, he asks Minato if he used his incredible power to vaporize the evil spirit from the market. Minato recalls the incident, so Haruma explains that he has lately been dealing with a lot more evil spirits than usual. For the sake of his job, he asks Minato to make him a talisman with his power. While Minato feels confused, Yamagami tells him to just write down another shopping shopping list for him. Minato asks Haruma if he really wants a shopping list, which leaves him completely stunned. Haruma wonders if Minato's shopping item contains some insane illegal goods, but when he starts listing out everyday items like tea and toilet paper, Haruma spits his tea out in outrage once Minato finishes writing the list. Haruma notes that it contains a mysterious power. Meanwhile, Minato feels tired for some reason, so Yamagami reminds him that he just used a lot of power. Finally, Haruma forks out a huge wad of cash to pay for Minato's precious shopping list. At first, Minato refuses the cash, reminding Haruma that he just wrote down some simple words. However, Haruma refuses to pay him any less than his worth, so Minato reluctantly accepts his payment. Still, he offers one last gift to him as thanks for the generous payment. Minato draws a pentagon symbol on Haruma's hand, explaining that it's something related to an exorcist's line of work. Just then, Haruma gets an urgent call to deal with a case, so he quickly rushes out of the house. Once he reaches the target side, he finds his colleagues cornered by a huge evil spirit they've never seen before. Haruma charges straight towards the spirit, but the spirit turns around and it's about to devour Haruma. However, to his shock, the pentagon on his hand completely obliterates the spirit, showing the depths of Minato's true power. A few days later, as Yamagami's visits become a normal part of Minato's life, the poor man calculates his expenses from all the gifts. After calculating the costs, Minato realizes that a jobless teenager like him cannot cover for the other jobless slobs shamelessly gorging themselves on world-class delicacies in this garden. Even though Minato tried feeding them some budget stuff, Yamagami's snobby little familiars would get clearly upset, so he had no choice but to give them the premium stuff. Still, it meant that Minato would soon run out of money to pay his bills. As Minato worries about his future, Yamagami notices a small rock quietly appearing in Minato's garden. Later, Minato heads out to the streets for a dreaded job hunt. He tries applying for a part-time job, but then remembers that it won't be enough to feed the Martin's familiars bottomless pits. Then, he notes a raffle nearby, so he decides to try his luck out. Somehow, Minato wins the grand prize of 100,000 yen, which gives him at least 3 days worth of money. Happy to procrastinate getting a job, he decides to buy some drinks to celebrate with Yamagami. However, when Minato enters the store, he unexpectedly becomes their 333rd customer. For some reason, the store owners celebrate this odd number, so as a reward, they gift Minato with a set of their best drinks. Minato wonders if his back-to-back lucky streaks are just a fluke, but when he basically ends up winning every single jackpot in the world afterward, he becomes convinced that something strange happened to his luck. Afterward, he returns home as a millionaire and asks Yamagami if he used his powers to rig the lottery. Yamagami shakes his head and points to a strange turtle in Minato's pond as the culprit. He explains that this rocky turtle is called Reiki, and it is one of the 4 sacred beasts that supposedly grant good luck. Apparently, Minato had helped Reiki sometime, so the little turtle decided to repay his favor. Although Minato doesn't recall preserving any endangered turtles, Yamagami reveals that he indirectly helped Reiki escape an evil spirit when he destroyed it near the marketplace. Despite this explanation, Minato feels skeptical about the turtle's powers. Suddenly, he gets a phone call from his mom, who informs him that he has won a 1 million yen lottery he had entered in the past. Finally, Minato accepts Reiki as the real deal and thanks it for its help. Yamagami notes that Reiki wants to live in the pond, so Minato wonders if he should allow it to stay or not. Yamagami then reminds him that he's literally the owner, so the decision is up to him, since the small turtle could help him live the rest of his life without working a finger. Minato easily accepts it into his garden. Then, he offers Reiki some of the drinks as thanks for his earlier help. Hearing about a free drink, the slow turtle instant transmissions straight in front of a bowl to get its reward. Minato smiles and tells Reiki to drink as much as he wants, but then, a glowing orb appears in front of him. Once the orb settles to the ground, it loses its glow, revealing the clump of seeds inside. Minato wonders where the seeds came from, so Yamagami explains that they're a gift from Reiki. Then, as Minato gets ready to plant the seeds, Yamagami warns him that they'll grow into a very large plant. To prevent his garden from being destroyed, Minato asks Yamagami for a suitable spot before planting the seeds inside. As he plants the seeds, Minato wonders which plant they'll actually grow into, but Yamagami keeps it a surprise. A few days later, Minato walks out to the garden carrying some cookies for Yamagami and his familiars. Suddenly, 2 little spirits peek out from from the roof, scaring the lights out of the poor man. Then, Yamagami greets them with the names Fujin and Reijin. So Minato realizes they're the famed spirits of wind and lightning from Japanese mythology. Although the two spirits were described as quite fearsome in the stories, they look quite cute in real life. After learning the spirits' real identity, Minato offers them some cookies, which they happily take. Then, both of them start making fun of Yamagami for nearly dying, but the old fox proudly tells them he'd never die so easily. Meanwhile, Yamagami's familiars get angry that the spirits stole their cookies. Before getting curious about their visit, the twin gods explain that they were simply curious about Minato's famous garden, so they came over to take a look. Then, they notice Reiki drinking from its bowl, so Minato offers to let them drink as well. Once the two of them are done drinking, Fujin gives Minato his power of wind as a gift. Shocked, Minato wonders how to use the power, so Yamagami tells him to imagine himself using the wind. With these instructions, Minato holds out his hands and concentrates hard. Soon, a gentle breeze starts blowing in the same direction. Although Minato is pleased to use his new vacuum cleaner's power, Yamagami explains that he can train it to become even more powerful. Elsewhere, in a dark facility, Haruma fights against more evil spirits. As he destroys one more, he notices that the pentagram from Minato has slowly faded away, while Haruma feels pity that his overpowered pentagram is about to disappear. Two of his teammates scream in panic nearby. He turns around, finding a man called Akijo cornered by a huge evil spirit. Although Akijo's partner, Horikawa, is standing nearby, she feels powerless to do anything against the dangerous spirit. Akijo screams at her to help him, but it's too late as the spirit lunges to attack. Suddenly, Haruma arrives in the nick of time and destroys the spirit with a shopping list. As Haruma checks on Horikawa, Akijo gets annoyed as he notices the shopping list in Haruma's hands. Afterward, he confronts Horikawa and asks her if she knows the source of Haruma's overpowered shopping lists. Horikawa admits that she doesn't know, so Akijo gets angry at her. Confused, she wonders why he's so upset. Then, she asks why he hates Haruma so much, which pisses him off even more. Still, Horikawa struggles free and leaves, so Akijo is left alone with his bruised ego. A few days later, Minato walks out to his garden, noticing that the rain outside has stopped. Yamagami explains that the garden is unaffected because the energy from all the magical creatures living inside has created a barrier around it. Then, Minato notices the seeds he planted, now sprouting into a small sapling. Yamagami tells Minato that this plant will be called Kusunnoki after his own name as the sacred tree of the house. Minato nods and waters the sapling before taking out some more treats for Yamagami. While the white fox eats, Minato pulls out some hiking gear from his luggage. Yamagami wonders where he's going, so Minato explains that he wants to go hiking on his mountain. Surprised, Yamagami warns him that his mountain isn't an easy place to hike, but Minato feels confident with his hiking gear. Finally, Yamagami allows him to hike his mountain as long as he doesn't go higher than his shrine. After completing his preparations, Minato goes hiking at Mount Hojo along with Yamagami's three familiars. Along the way, Minato starts struggling with the harsh terrain, but the three spirits cheer him on. After a long, hard hike, Minato finally arrives at a clearing where he spots Yamagami's broken old shrine. The three Martins reassure Minato that he doesn't need to clean up anything. However, Minato still wants to repair it to pay respects to his friend. Seeing his sincerity, the spirits help him transport the materials and fix up the broken shrine. After some time, they finish cleaning the shrine and sit down to eat. Suddenly, everyone hears some unsettling roars coming from the nearby forest. Without an explanation, the spirits get up to investigate, so Minato chases after them. As he catches up with them, he notices that a large black mist has gathered around a nearby waterfall. From the black mist, an evil spirit appears and attacks one of the Martins, who hides in Minato's arms. Then, one of them notes that the evil spirit has absorbed another creature, before asking Minato if he can see it. Minato explains that he can only see good spirits, but this particular evil spirit is so powerful that even he can faintly see it. Since the ferrets are too scared to approach the evil spirit, Minato decides decides to confront it with one of his notes. As he tries to vaporize the spirit with the note, the spirit dodges his attack and retaliates. Minato realizes that he can't defeat the spirit without risking his own body. But then he gets another idea. He takes out a bunch of his notes from his bag and tosses them up in the air and uses his wind magic to blow them towards the spirit like a machine gun. This time, one of the notes hits the evil spirit, which instantly erases it from existence. After the evil spirit disappears, a strange orb falls out of its body and reveals a strange creature inside. As Minato tries to check if the creature is okay, it instantly goes on alert and runs away. Although Minato feels a little disappointed, he feels happy that the creature is feeling okay. A little while later, he returns home, and Yamagami thanks him for cleaning his shrine. Then, Minato asks him about the creature he saw, but Yamagami keeps it a secret from him once again. Minato lets him keep the secret, but then he notices that the kusunnoki tree has stopped growing. The Martins explain that since the tree is a sacred plant, its growth pattern is different from that of normal trees. While they discuss the tree, Reiki alerts Minato to the door, so he heads out to check. Outside, he finds a small blue dragon floating in the air. The dragon bows to greet Minato, so he returns the respect as well. Minato then invites the dragon inside and asks Yamagami about it. Yamagami explains that the dragon is called Oryu, and it's another one of the 4 fortune beasts. Oryu notices the kusunnoki tree, and it heads out and summons a strange power. Soon, black clouds start gathering over the garden despite the magic barrier around it. However, when the clouds start raining, they cause the kusunnoki tree to grow to a massive size in just a few seconds. Once the tree has grown, Oryu stops the rain and asks Minato for permission to live in his pond. Minato agrees to let it stay, but only if Reiki allows it. Since Reiki doesn't mind, Oryu starts living with them. Yamagami explains that Oryu likes Minato very much, since Haruma used his pentagram to free it from an evil spirit. Even though it was technically Haruma's work, Oryu noticed the source of his magic power and came to Minato's house to thank him. Suddenly, Haruma himself arrives at the door, hoping for another batch of ghost-repellent writing. Minato takes out a fresh batch of notes for him, and in return, Haruma gives him a delicious dessert as thanks. Noticing the yummy food, Yamagami's mouth starts watering, but Minato remains focused on Haruma. He asks the exorcist if the pentagram was any good, and Haruma praises him for its exceptional power. Then, he asks him to draw another symbol on his hand, but this time, he wants the shape to be different. Minato wonders if Haruma just doesn't like pentagrams, but he explains that the pentagram is the family crest of another family. Minato nods and draws a new shape on Haruma's hand, which he observes while working. One of Haruma's trusted co-workers points out that Minato's notes aren't very useful since they're hard to throw. Haruma explains that he already fixed this issue by having Minato write solid business cards for him. Hearing this, the co-worker cracks a joke that Haruma is ready to be a superhero with his throwing cards. Then, he gets serious and warns him to keep Minato's identity a secret, since any evil person could exploit him for his spirit-warding powers. He notes that Akijo has already found out about Minato, but hopes that he doesn't do anything to hurt him. Meanwhile, in the market, Minato bumps into Akijo, who glares at him and walks away. Confused, Minato keeps walking, but he fails to notice the small talisman that Akijo sneakily left on his back. A few days later, while Minato writes down another world-ending shopping list, Yamagami notices Akijo's evil talisman floating around. His eyes narrow, recalling Haruma's warning about a colleague who was keeping track of Minato's movements. Yamagami feels angered that such a random small fry wants to hurt his friend, so he erases the talisman to protect Minato. Sometime later, Akijo himself tracks down Minato's house after all the failures from his cursing talismans. When he reaches the house with Horikawa, she asks him what he plans to do after seeing Minato. Akijo tells her that he'll either buy his talismans in bulk or force him to create custom-made artifacts just for himself. Then, Horikawa senses a strange ringing sound from all the magical energy around Minato's house, but she's unable to understand what it is. Akijo steps up and rings the doorbell, but when the door doesn't open, he kicks it out of frustration. Suddenly, a strange power courses through his body and causes him to slip and fall. After Akijo gets up, he finds himself in a nightmarish landscape, centered around an ominous shrine. Confused, he calls for his Horikawa, but no one responds. The scared man looks around, and after feeling a chilling dread, he tries to run away from the hellscape. However, one of the trees sprouts its roots in his path, which causes him to stumble and fall face first on a hard rock, shock. After experiencing the pain of death, Ichijo miraculously wakes up back at the shrine. He checks his watch and realizes that the time hasn't passed even by a single second, which leaves him even more terrified. Then, Ichijo notices a big line of talismans humming with energy, their power seeming anything but friendly. Meanwhile, Minato peacefully completes his shopping list back at the house. Nearby, Yamagami flips through a local magazine, in which he finds that his favorite bean bun maker has started using chunky bean paste instead of smooth. This change in texture is too outrageous for Yamagami to handle, and Minato notices how angry he is. He realizes that the bean maker is called Ichigo, who's a baker he regularly visits. To ease Yamagami's anger, Minato decides to pay Ichigo a visit to convince him into making more smooth buns. On his way there, Yamagami joins Minato for the trip, so he feels worried that the people around them will notice. Yamagami reassures Minato that most people cannot see him, but still, the people around them notice his pleasant smell and presence. Before getting Yamagami's buns, they head to a pet shop for some stuff. Yamagami picks out a nice dog bowl for himself, but Minato feels bad about feeding his best friend like a stray puppy. Instead, he buys a more suitable vessel for Yamagami, before picking out a soft sleeping cushion. Yamagami insists that he doesn't need any bedding, but when he actually feels the cushion's softness, he instantly falls in love with it. Minato notes that the dog cushion is too small for him, so he makes a custom order for a larger one. Afterward, both of them visit Ichigo's shop. Ichigo recognizes Minato as a neighbor and wonders if he has visited Yamagami's mountain. Minato nods, so Ichigo secretly asks him if he has met the holy dog of the mountain. Behind Minato, the offended Yamagami points out that he's a wolf. Minato takes the chance to avoid lying and tells Ichigo that he hasn't met any magic dogs lately. He asks the baker what he's talking about, so Ichigo explains that he has met the holy dog of the mountain. Back in his childhood, he had gotten lost in the vast mountain while playing outside. As the young Ichigo tried to find his way, he stumbled upon a strange shrine. Suddenly, a strange dog appeared in front of him and scared him away. Everywhere the little boy ran, the dog would pop up out of nowhere to scare him in another direction. It was only after Ichigo found himself at the base of the mountain that he realized the dog had helped him find his way back. In the present, Ichigo thinks that he saw a guiding demon dog, which angers Yamagami even more. Still, the baker explains that he has held respect for Yamagami ever since then and praises him as a holy dog. Minato feels surprised by the story and acts like he'd like to meet the dog himself. Afterward, he leaves the store with Yamagami, wondering how Ichigo got back to full health. Yamagami explains that although he can't delay a person's death, he can at least help them maintain their health with his energy. Since Ichigo makes his favorite buns, he needs the old man to stay in business for as long as he can. As the two of them watch, Ichigo's grandson returns home, both of them looking like a perfect family. Afterward, Minato returns home and ties a wind chime to the garden ceiling. Then, he leaves to take a bath, while Yamagami reluctantly tries out the new chunky buns. Before he starts to eat, Yamagami remembers that a certain unpleasant visitor was just outside their house. After Ichigo had experienced the same nightmarish hellscape again and again, he wondered if he was trapped inside to rot forever. Finally, the endless terror overwhelmed him, and the man begged whoever was controlling the realm to forgive him for angering them. With his apology, Yamagami finally released him from the nightmare, and Ichigo returned to his senses in the real world. When he woke up, he asked Horikawa how long she had been waiting for him. Horikawa felt confused, since she didn't feel any time pass during the time Ichigo was trapped in the nightmare. After hearing this, Ichigo gets terrified of Minato's house and runs away like a scared child. Left behind, the confused Horikawa wonders if the house's bell had anything to do with Ichigo's terror. Meanwhile, Yamagami continues to peacefully enjoy his chunky buns. Soon, Minato comes out of the bath, wondering if they had any visitors. Yamagami tells him no, so Minato changes the topic and wonders if he likes the new buns. Despite his earlier complaints, Yamagami actually likes the new buns after tasting them. Minato feels glad that their trip to Ichigo's bakery wasn't a waste, and sits down to relax. Yamagami notices that he took quite a long bath this time, even though he usually takes quick showers. Minato explains that he's used to taking relaxing baths in a hot spring back at home, so he wanted to experience that feeling once more. Hearing this, Yamagami grows thoughtful and decides to take action. The very next day, as Minato walks out to his garden, he notices the smell of burning sulfur. Surprised, he sees that Yamagami has created a full hot spring bath bath right in his garden for him to enjoy. Minato gratefully accepts his gift and enters the bath to relax. He then notices that the turtle and dragon aren't present. Yamagami explains that the two small beasts must be resting at the bottom of the garden's pond. He also reveals that he created the hot spring with their help last night. Minato nods, making a mental note to thank them both. Sometime later, he gets out of the hot bath to relax on the cold floor. While Minato is out of commission, Yamagami peacefully enjoys a dog bowl full of tea. Then, one of his familiars suddenly alerts everyone that they've got a new visitor. Oryu then approaches Minato, explaining that the visitor is someone he and Reiki know. After Minato steps outside, he finds nothing at the door. Then, he notices a shy creature peeking out from under the grass. Once the creature is found out, it ducks back down out of shyness. One of the ferrets explains that it's asking for permission to enter the house, so Minato agrees to let it inside. After their new friend enters, it introduces itself as Kirin, then begins to tremble nervously while muttering a few words. Minato wonders what it's saying, so one of the ferrets acts as a translator for him. It explains that the Kirin is incredibly grateful to him for saving it from the evil spirit. Minato doesn't think much of his own actions, but the Kirin suddenly grows bolder and starts thanking him with more words than the English dictionary. After an hour of yapping, the Kirin offers to make Minato the king of half the world as thanks for his help. Of course, Minato doesn't want so much power, so the Kirin wonders why a human could resist its offer. In the Kirin's mind, humans are greedy creatures who invade other nations just for plundering their resources, so it thinks that Minato would like its gift. While Minato struggles to explain, Fujin and Reijin tell Kirin that he doesn't have any such greed in his heart. Afterward, the Kirin finally leaves Minato alone, who thanks the two spirits for helping him out. Minato then notices that they look bigger than before. They explain that they're simply returning back to their original size since Minato's garden is a beneficial environment for them. To thank him for his help, they pull out a giant rare fish and slice it up for a feast. The ferrets wonder if Minato can do something so amazing as well, but he isn't strong enough yet. Reijin then makes him try out his wind power on Yamagami to see if he has gotten stronger. After Minato blows the gentle breeze across Yamagami's soft fur, the poor wolf wakes up from his nap with a sneeze. Thankfully, Yamagami doesn't mind his experiments. Reijin notices that Minato wasn't going as hard as he could and realizes that he was afraid of hurting Yamagami. The wind spirit explains that if Minato tries out the full limits of his powers on a safe target first, he can learn to better control them around other people. As Minato thinks about his words, he gets a message from his mom informing him that their house's nameplate got broken again. Yamagami thinks that a supernatural spirit might be behind the strange nameplate incidents, so Minato recalls the young spirit called Warashi who lives in his house. Yamagami explains that the spirit warding power in Minato's nameplates must have expired, so the peaceful spirit in his house breaks them as a reminder to replace them. Hearing this, Minato recalls how many times the nameplates got broken back in his childhood, so he agrees with Yamagami's explanation. Before making a new nameplate for his mom, Minato wonders if he can improve them somehow. Yamagami thinks that he can upgrade his spirit warding powers, so the next time he can send stronger nameplates that will last a lot longer. Minato wonders how to increase his power, so Yamagami gets up to start training. He opens up a strange portal, which leads the surprised Minato to a forest full of trees. Yamagami tells him to use the full power of his wind magic, but Minato feels bad about damaging the beautiful trees. Yamagami explains that the trees are all fake, so he should feel free to destroy them all. With his reassurance, Minato finally prepares to use his full strength. Meanwhile, outside the house, the Kirin returns with a durian as a gift for Minato. It leaves the foul-smelling fruit on the ground, so both Reiki and Oryu start screaming at it for leaving smelly trash behind. The Kirin gets offended that they rejected for its precious gift, but it reluctantly leaves the mansion. Back in the forest, Yamagami watches as Minato holds out his hands and concentrates. This time, he releases a powerful wind that shakes even the strong trees, but suddenly, his body gives out and he collapses from all the strain. Afterward, he wakes up back in the house, and Yamagami explains that his body couldn't handle his own full power. From then on, Minato starts training with Yamagami to strengthen his wind magic and stamina. Once his power grows stronger, he makes a new nameplate for his mom with extra spirit warding strength. While Minato prepares to send the gift home, Haruma faces a new threat elsewhere. In a dense, shrouded forest, he steps back in horror horror from a shrine surrounded by a dark, heavy miasma. That was episode 3. Subscribe to not miss the next part and watch the next video on screen.